We're going to talk about something very important. The term's called Kaizen. It's a Japanese term that talks about making something better, manufacturing, making it better, faster, quicker, more efficient. Kaizen also applies to the individual as well. We can always be better, higher quality, more efficient, and basically more aware. So with Kaizen, strength grows from knowledge of weakness. We can basically become stronger by knowing what our weaknesses are. Our strengths take care of themselves, but our weaknesses don't. That's the area for the greatest improvement. So with regards to Kaizen, I have a very good story. It involves Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee was notorious for teaching everybody Kung Fu. Black people, white people, Asian people, gay people, females, anybody who wanted to learn Kung Fu, Bruce Lee was going to teach them, okay? And that was really radical in the 60s. So of course, word got back to a grandmaster in China and he said, oh my God, Bruce Lee's teaching Kung Fu to non-Chinese, got to do something about it. So he flies out from Hong Kong to confront Bruce Lee. He's like, hey Bruce Lee, I heard you're teaching Kung Fu to non-Chinese, that's not cool, you can't do that, you can't do that at all, you got to stop. And Bruce Lee is like, no, not at all whatsoever, get out of my face and kick rocks. The Chinese grandmaster had a very big ego, and he said to himself and said to his entourage, you know what, I want to challenge him to a fight. So he tells Bruce Lee, with his whole entourage there, he says, I challenge you to a fight. And if I defeat you, you'll stop teaching Kung Fu to non-Chinese people. And if you defeat me, I'll go away and leave you alone. So the next day at the dojo, Bruce Lee's entourage is there, and so is the Grandmaster's entourage are there. They're all there to get together to see this very important fight. So Bruce Lee fights this guy, and he defeats him in 5 minutes. Truly amazing. And this guy looks down, and he's a big, egotistical kind of guy. He says, you defeated me, I'm out of here, you won, you get to do what you want to do, even though I'm completely against it. Bruce Lee's students surround him, gather around him and say, Bruce, what you've done is amazing. You defeated a grandmaster in 5 minutes. And Bruce Lee's looking down. He's being self-reflexive and he's not smiling. One of his students goes, Bruce Lee, what do you have to say? He says, I should have defeated him in 3 minutes, not 5 minutes. And that's why he's fucking Bruce Lee. He's humble. A humble person can't be humiliated. A humble woman cannot be humiliated. Humble means teachable, accountable, and not full of excuses. Another example, Socrates. It says, Socrates, you're really, really smart. In fact, we decided we're going to give you an award for being the smartest and wisest man in the whole world, which is basically Greece. And so he goes, wait a second, before I accept your award for being so great and so smart, I want to find out who else was actually nominated. So the committee goes, this is kind of weird, he wants to know who else was nominated, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. So what happens is that Socrates goes around Greece and he asks this guy who's a very brilliant man in mathematics and says, tell me all about yourself and what do you know? He says, I know about the Pythagorean theorem, I know all these smart things, I can do graphs, I can do geometry, all this stuff. And he's like, okay. Meets another guy, geography guy, I know the whole world, all the oceans, all the rivers, the highest peaks. He's like, okay, all right, got it. Okay. Meets another guy, talks about literature and his vocabulary, how brilliant it is. So Socrates goes all around Greece, meets all these really, really smart people. He comes all the way back to the committee and says, I will accept your nomination and your award for being great and smart. And they go, well, why is that? He goes, because everybody that I met with, every single individual told me about all the things that they knew, but not about the things they didn't know. And that's why I'm wiser and smarter than them. Strength grows from knowledge of weakness. And Socrates was brilliant in that way. When it comes back to Bruce Lee, they ask Bruce Lee, do you think you're really, really great at martial arts? Now, Bruce Lee is smart and he's brilliant and he's wise. That's a loaded question. So what does he say? He goes, if I tell you I'm great, you'll think I'm boastful and I'm prideful. If I tell you I'm not great, you'll think I'm a liar. I'll tell you what's the truth. He goes, I fear no one. That's Bruce Lee's response. Okay, so going back to Socrates taking this award, we recognize the fact that a humble person can't be humiliated. This is a very important concept. And strength grows from knowledge of weakness. Humility is strength, it's teachability, it's accountability. It's not being filled with excuses. So when it comes to giving yourself an award for being really smart, giving yourself an award for being really great, listen to Teddy Atlas, the famous boxing coach. Don't sit back and admire your work. Figure out who your competition is, right? Because that's very important. And in fact, you might discover that your competition is your greatest enemy, yourself, right? Who got you arrested? Who got you that bad bank loan? Who made you get into that bad relationship? Right? Who got you to marry that girl? Who made that bad impulsive decision? Who allowed you to get so twisted by other people and other ideas that you learned through politics to hate your other man? Always remember this. Be very, very careful. Your greatest enemy might actually be yourself.